Hello and welcome to PRSay. This is the podcast of the Houston chapter of the Public Relations Society of America. And I'm your host, Veronica Sopher with Veronica V. Sopher Public Relations. And I'm a proud member of the Houston chapter and thrilled to be able to introduce you to some of our other phenomenal members so that when we meet in person and we engage, we are building our network and authentically connecting. So on this episode, I have a fantastic guest that I'm going to bring up in just a moment. But before I do that, let's take care of some housekeeping. If you are listening on the podcast, make sure you hit subscribe. We don't want you to miss any episodes of PRSay. And if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, drop us some comments and my guest and I will be sure to circle back and say hello. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and bring our amazing member on. We have Cynthia Murga joining us. Hello and welcome to PRSay.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Veronica.
Yeah, I'm so excited to meet you and talk about the things that you're doing here in the Houston area and share with our other PRSay Houston chapter members the exciting work you do around social media. But before we really dive into that, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into public relations.
Yes, of course. So I am a communications professional and public relations strategist with social media also behind, in my back pocket, with more than 10 years of experience in both the general and Hispanic markets. I specialize really in strategizing and developing specific strategies that will help elevate brand names with PR and social media efforts. And then just always identifying the best ways to provide an integrated marketing approach that will help you see success with whether it's a campaign, a product, a service, a person. But I have been in the industry for more than 10 years now, and I'm loving to see how it's evolving within the communication space more and more.
Yeah. And that evolution is much faster than it used to be, at least in the social media part, wouldn't you say?
Yes, definitely. I think, I come from the agency background. So I've always known that integrating anything within the communication space to the overall marketing strategy has always been very important. I will say that, post-pandemic, I have seen an increase on how you should be utilizing more social media within your efforts, specifically with PR, right? So I am currently leading PR and social media efforts at the organization that I work in. And everything that I do is thought through purposefully and meaningfully, and really just how can I tie it back to what I'm doing with PR? And not only PR, right? So whatever our marketing team is doing, I want to make sure that we're always aligning, streamlining to make sure that everything sounds and looks good from every way that you can look through it.
Yeah. And that alignment is so important because people are getting your brand and getting your messaging from tons of different places.
Correct. And then I think with the ever evolving industry, this PR and social media duo is really making an impact, right? But social media itself, I will say that, we are utilizing more in the B2B space that you can ever imagine, even on LinkedIn. One of my biggest efforts within the organization I work with is social selling, right? So how can you sell your product, but still keep this genuine effort along with it? You want to seem organic. You want to always humanize the brand, humanize yourself as a salesperson if you are selling the product, or even just our service people, right? How can we make sure that they are showcasing who they really are, elevating themselves, their personal branding, but at the same time, tying it back to the organization they work with?
Yeah. And that's so important, especially for those of us that are in the public sector. And then in the private sector, you've got some different challenges. And that's really, I think, the challenge you have in the work that you do in the B2B space. Tell us a little bit about your organization and how you support what people are doing in their businesses.
Yeah, so I work for a PEO, so professional employee organization, and we provide all-in-one solutions or HR services for small and mid-sized businesses. So services include benefits administration, payroll, and more. We are a local organization in Sparity. I'm sure our listeners have heard of them, but we have a great mission, right, which is really just to make sure that we help businesses succeed so communities can prosper. And that I think that's really important when it comes back to social media, because within the communities that you work and live in, you want to make sure that you are elevating whatever that is, whether it's volunteerism work or just highlighting your people, your clients. How can you attract more prospects, knowing that whatever it is that you're currently doing in the community is really making an impact. That helps with just elevating your name brand and
Yeah.
making sure that you're always thought of.
Yeah, no, that's right on the mark. What do you think some of the challenges are in for those of us who have had to had to keep up with the pace with social media? What do you think some of the challenges are for maybe those of us who are in a more traditional role of maybe copywriting and don't have to keep up with social media trends? What are some of the challenges in balancing that out, do you think?
I think the biggest challenge now is the change in the actual platforms. So
Mm-hmm.
something that I'm always, making sure that I am relaying to our employees that we work with in regards to what they're putting out on their social feeds is that LinkedIn, for example, is not what it used to be, right? You
Mm-hmm.
usually used to use it because you want to share what you're doing in your career space, your resume, connecting with recruiters. But now LinkedIn has become more than that. It's a great place, I like to say, where you can really show your work-life balance because it's a place where you have your colleagues and professional connections watching your every move. But believe it or not, they love to see what you do in the weekends or pictures of the family and really just associating this genuine human connection back to what you do on the day-to-day in your work.
Yeah.
I think that the changes keep happening with the platforms that keep coming up too, right? So TikTok is now big. How can organizations utilize these platforms that are maybe geared to younger audiences, but to your current audience, or identify how you can also be part of a TikTok trend that will still resonate with your current audience, right? So it's
Yeah.
just kind of going back and that's what I love about social media. You can test it. If it doesn't work, go back, re-strategize, and try new tactics.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's got to save you tons of money, especially when you think about what we used to do to invest in collateral material or ads that we used to pay for. I mean, when you think about billboard costs and some of those other expenses, social media is just a drop in the hat compared to some of the other costs in your budget.
I agree. I mean, influencer marketing is so big right now. You see it everywhere. You have influencers that have their day job, but at the same time have their side hustles, I like to call it, because
Yeah.
they are making they are getting these they are making themselves a brand. They are
Right.
making themselves more visible. They are talking about trending topics, but at the same time, they're human, right? So they show what they do at home, especially now, right? Post pandemic, a lot of us are either working from home or have hybrid roles. So you kind of just find that humanizing impact again that I keep talking to that needs to be done so that you can be more genuine within the content that you create.
Yeah, that's so true. And give us one piece of advice that you think every public relations practitioner needs to know about social media. I know we're going to wrap up in just a second, but I feel like you've got great nuggets and I want to make sure our members get at least one really good one. What's a piece of
Yes.
advice for someone working on public social media content?
Keep up with the trends. So, I work really closely with my team, and we are always either emailing or texting each other what the trends are. As you all know, social media can literally change from one day to the next.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
keep up with it. Make sure that you know what changes are happening with each platform, what the trending topics are. Believe it or not, a lot of what's trending in the social media space is also trending with our media folks. So you want to make sure that you're aligning
Mhm.
those stories to make sure that they make sense with the organization and the brand. But just keep up. I think that is my biggest learning this year is that as long as you know what is trending and how to utilize it so it can benefit you and your overall goals and objectives, then it will work.
Yeah, that's really great advice. I definitely will be taking that to heart. Cynthia, how can folks keep up with you? What's the best way to stay connected and really get to know you in a professional setting?
Yes, find me on LinkedIn. I am on LinkedIn, Cynthia Murga, and I am always happy to connect. DM me. I'm always happy to connect offline too if you need to. And then more than happy to make sure that we provide more insight on what's happening within the social media space, specifically in the B2B.
Yeah, that's great. All right, members, if you are looking for a social media expert, Cynthia is who you need to connect with. She's on LinkedIn, and her LinkedIn account will be in the show notes. So make sure you click it so that when you connect with her in person next time, you've got something to talk about. Cynthia, thank you so much for joining us on PRSay.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Veronica.
All right, guys, that ends our episode. I brought you another fantastic guest. Make sure you connect with Cynthia. Her tips on social media are so important, and we all need to be keeping up with those trends. If it's something that we've got team members that are well versed about, maybe you want to connect them to Cynthia so that you can just continue to build that network of experts here in our Houston chapter of PRSay. So with that, I'm going to wrap up this episode. Make sure you hit subscribe. We don't want you to miss any episodes of PRSay. And if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, drop us some comments, and Cynthia and I will go back and connect. Next time, we will bring you another fantastic guest, and